On a cold February night in 1978, 5 men left a basketball game in California. They were expected home that evening, but they never arrived. Days later, their abandoned car was discovered high in the mountains, miles away from where they should have been. Inside the vehicle were clues, but no answers. Months later, investigators would discover a remote cabin containing evidence that made the mystery even more disturbing. Why did 5 men drive into freezing mountains? Why did some survive longer than others? On February 24, 1978, 5 friends from the Yuba City area of California attended a basketball game at California State University, Chico. The group was unusual. They were not criminals. They were not experienced hikers. They were ordinary men returning home after an evening together. The 5 were Jack Madruga, 30, Theodore Ted Weiher, 32, William Bill Sterling, 29, Jack Huett, 24, Gary Mathias, 25. Each man had his own personality and background. Some worked, some lived with family. They were known in their community and considered dependable. Nothing about the evening suggested that anything unusual was about to happen. After the basketball game ended, the 5 men left in Jack Madruga's 1969 Mercury Montego. Their intended destination was home, but somehow their journey took them far away from their normal route. Instead of heading toward Yuba City, the car traveled into the Sierra Nevada mountains. The road they entered was remote, steep, and dangerous. During winter, the area could become extremely difficult to navigate. Snow and ice were common. Temperatures could drop below freezing, and conditions could become deadly within hours. When the men failed to return home, their families became concerned. A search began. Days later, investigators discovered their vehicle on a mountain road near the Plumas National Forest. The location was shocking. The car was approximately 70 miles away from where the men should have been. The vehicle was not damaged. It was not involved in a crash. It appeared to have simply been abandoned. Inside, investigators found personal belongings, clothing, money, and other items that suggested the men had left quickly. But one question remained. Authorities began searching the surrounding area. However, the investigation faced immediate challenges. The mountains were enormous, the terrain was difficult, and winter conditions made searching dangerous. At first, investigators had little evidence about where the men had gone. There were no clear tracks, no witnesses, and no explanation for why they had traveled there. Months later, in June 1978, searchers made a discovery that changed the investigation. A remote Forest Service cabin was found several miles from where the vehicle had been abandoned. Inside was evidence that someone had been there. The cabin contained blankets, food, a wood-burning stove, and other supplies. This created one of the biggest mysteries in the case. The men had reached a shelter. They had access to warmth. They had access to food. So why did they not survive? Near the cabin, investigators found the remains of Theodore Weiher. His condition suggested he had survived for a significant period after disappearing. He had been found wearing multiple layers of clothing. His boots were missing, and evidence suggested he had struggled to survive in the harsh conditions. This discovery created even more questions. If Ted had reached the cabin, where were the others? And why had the group separated? Investigators continued looking for the remaining men. Eventually, the remains of Jack Madruga and Bill Sterling were found. They were located several miles away from the cabin, but Gary Mathias and Robert Passmore remained missing. The mystery became more confusing. Why had the group split apart? Why did some men remain near the cabin while others moved away? The Yuba County Five case generated many theories. One possibility was that the men became lost. Perhaps they accidentally turned onto the mountain road. Perhaps they believed they were closer to civilization than they actually were. In freezing conditions, confusion and poor decision-making can become dangerous very quickly. Another theory suggested that the men may have experienced a psychological crisis. The group included Gary Mathias, who had a history of mental health challenges. Some investigators wondered whether confusion or fear influenced the decisions made that night. The cabin remains the center of the mystery. Many people question why the men did not simply stay there. There was food, there was shelter, there was firewood. A person familiar with survival situations might assume the cabin offered their best chance. But investigators also considered another possibility. The men may not have understood their situation. They may have believed help was nearby. They may have thought leaving would lead them back to safety. In extreme situations, human decision-making can become unpredictable. One of the biggest mysteries involves Gary Mathias. His shoes were reportedly found near the car. Some investigators believe he may have returned to the vehicle after the others left. Others believe he may have become separated from the group. His final movements remain unknown. No confirmed explanation has ever been established. Unlike many criminal cases, the Yuba County Five investigation had no obvious crime scene. There was no confirmed attacker, no weapon, no suspect. Instead, investigators were left trying to reconstruct decisions. Where did the men go? What did they believe was happening? And why did they make the choices that ultimately led to tragedy? The Yuba County Five case has remained famous because the evidence does not provide a simple explanation. Every clue seems to create another question. The abandoned vehicle, the remote cabin, the supplies left behind. The missing answers. It is a mystery involving not only what happened, but why. The case is sometimes compared to the Dyatlov Pass incident. Both involve groups entering dangerous wilderness areas. Both involve unanswered questions. Both involve people making decisions that seem difficult to understand. But unlike Dyatlov Pass, the Yuba County Five case happened in modern America, leaving behind records, witnesses, and physical evidence. Yet the mystery remains. More than 4 decades later, the Yuba County Five remain one of America's most haunting wilderness mysteries. 5 men left a basketball game expecting to return home. Instead, they ended up deep in the mountains. Their vehicle was found. A cabin was discovered. Some answers were uncovered, but the biggest questions remain. Why did they go there? Why did they leave the safety of their vehicle? And what happened during those final days in the California wilderness? The truth may never be completely known. What do you think happened to the Yuba County Five?